I wonder, did some of you get a chance to see the latest edition of The Evangelist? You might have gotten in the mail in the last day or two. Bishop Scharfenberger's column, he was writing about a meeting he went to in Mexico. And while he was there, he had the chance to have some people just to bring him into some of the neighborhoods and to see a little bit about the daily life of the people. And he was writing about his experience visiting some particularly impoverished neighborhoods. And let's see, well, the phrase he used, he said, he saw people that the world likes to forget, and was talking about how the experience of the church is there for them, that the people would turn to the church because they knew the church would treat them with dignity. And as your parish priest, I've been here just a month and a half or so, but I've had some similar experiences when I've been, say, up in the small towns in the northernmost part of Warren County, where I would run into the face of rural poverty that's very, very different. Or before I came here with you, I was the pastor of Blessed Sacrament in Albany on Central Avenue, and I would encounter parishioners who were going through really, really difficult and extreme times. Some of them were such that I would be awake at night just worried about their situations. But they would come to us, they would come to the church, because they knew that God's love was present and that they could find the people who would treat them with dignity, which was not always the experience when they went to other places. With that as a backdrop, I want to talk just a little bit today about the Diocesan Appeal, because, well, thinking about the bishop's story and thinking about my own experience, I'm reminded, say, for me, an image of parish that I find very, very uplifting is one that we're very much family. We're attentive to each other. We know each other. Little things like masks and spacing and using sanitizer to be watchful for each other, especially our friends who can't be vaccinated. Things like that. The things we do to share faith with our young, things we do to be attentive to people's needs in our community. When we talk about family, we talk about how we draw people in. And that speaks to me in a very, very heartfelt way, because I'll just mention this. I think about my extended family. My parents, my mother and father, together had 9 siblings. I have a lot of aunts and uncles. I was born in the mid-50s. A lot of my cousins were born in that same span, too, going into the mid-60s. So, families were a little bigger back then, right? I have about 52, 54 living first cousins. They're all over Western New England, and some are scattered in different parts of the country where work and education has taken them. I'm the oldest of 6 children. I have 17 nieces and nephews. And I've got a handful of grandnieces and grandnephews, some of them in their 20s. Now, I might ask myself, when was the last time I thought about all of them? Every single one of them. And I gotta admit, some I keep close track of, but some, it's hard. Emails change, phone numbers change, people move. You know what I mean. We're a mobile society. These things happen. But I want to keep in touch with my family. Look at our diocesan family. 124 parishes, 14 counties, Catholic charities, school, faith formation, sacramental preparation, spiritual formation, educating seminarians, educating future lay leaders, everything in between. There's a lot going on. No one parish can do it all. And even if we think about the things that we do jointly with our friends just up the road at St. Patrick's and Ravenna, our 2 parishes alone couldn't possibly be able to respond to the breadth and depth of the kinds of situations that we face as a diocesan family. All these things just get me thinking about how we can support the Diocesan Appeal so that in the name of Jesus, we can serve others even if they're far away and we can't reach them. Even if they're far away. And there's a lot of space in 14 counties. There are parishes that are a good 3-hour drive from Albany. There are parishes that are in very, very remote corners of distant counties. We have family that lives everywhere. How do we respond to the hungers and needs of our sisters and brothers? The Diocesan Appeal helps us. Because really, Think about the impact on the lives of vulnerable people, vulnerable members. I'm sure everyone's got stories about the pandemic, your family, people you know, your neighbors. We all have short stories to share. Let me share a quick one with you. I have some friends who are volunteers with Catholic Charities. They're involved in a program called Food Drops. Maybe you've seen a picture in the paper, maybe you've seen something on television. They'll go to a large parking lot, like a supermarket or a community college or a shopping center. People will line up in their cars, and there'll be volunteers there with food that's come from various sources, and they'll distribute the food in boxes. People roll up one by one, and depending on the number of people in their family, or perhaps the number of families that they're gathering for, boxes of food go into the trunk or in the back seat of the car. Now, there are people in some of the spots who have been in need before, need often. There's other people, because of the depth of the pandemic, who are asking for food for the first or the second time in their lives. And they might feel maybe more than a little mixed about it. They might feel a little embarrassed or ashamed. The story for me is not so much the sharing of the food. The story for me is about the volunteers who, with compassion and with heart and understanding, help people. People who drive forward with tears in their eyes because they don't have food for their children. And they make them feel, well, we can help. There's no shame, there's no worry. Here, blessings. Take this food, go and eat. Like the bishop said before, and like I said before, people seek out the support of the church because we treat them with dignity. Impact on vulnerable members? Yeah, the Diocesan Appeal is something that we can help. That helps them in the midst of deep and searing needs. And something that maybe is a little bit close to home for us. You've seen those posters with all those seminarian faces on there. We've been blessed at St. Patrick's and St. Mary's in having a seminarian for the last several years in the summertime. And some of you knew Matt Duclos before he was ordained. Some of you knew Father Dan McHale before he was ordained because they were here. In fact, Father Dan had his Mass of Thanksgiving right here. Many of you came that summer afternoon. I see you nodding. You remember that? Yeah. This past summer, we had Adam Feistham, who's gone back to his studies at St. Mary's in Baltimore. Now, I could tell you it's important that we have all these seminarians because it talks about continuity. Let me say that when it comes to need, that we need more deacons. We need lay people, married people, and single people. We need people of all ages, the very young and folks in the September of their years, because you all have gifts to share as we encounter people with many deep and varied hungers. But we're a Eucharistic people, and as we bless the bread and the wine, we need priests too. So it's good to know that we've got about 30 priests who are going through studies right now, 30 future priests who are going through studies. Will all of them make it? Let's see what they discern. But we're supporting and sustaining them because they are our future shepherds. They'll come here and be with you. And I could joke about this a little bit because, well, the last parish I was in, I was replacing a priest who was 77 years old. He had been in that parish for 42 years. And after the first weekend, a couple of folks stopped and said, "Hey, Father Joe, we're so pleased to meet you. We're so glad you're such a young priest." I had just turned from 62 to 63 at that point. I was their young priest. There are people in the city of Albany who think I'm a young priest. I got them fooled. All that aside, though, here is, I'm with you now, I'm 66. It's good to know that we have other people coming along who can be here for future generations. And their being formed in the seminary is important, but their being formed here with you, I think, is equally important because, sure, in the seminary they're learning a great deal, but here in the parish, they're learning how to be with you, listen to you, walk with you, be with you. It's a lesson they'll take with them for the rest of their lives. Back in the late 80s, when I was a seminarian and I was at St. Vincent's in Cobleskill, we had this parish volunteer who was a woodworker. And I remember seeing his garage where he had his lathes and all of his tools. And he had these squarish pieces of wood that he was forming together. and he was cutting and sanding them so that the corner was going to be a little more rounded. And he said, you guys come to us with sharp elbows and bright ideas, but some of you have very, very rough edges. It's up to us to kind of, sand you and smooth you and help you be so that you can be with others. Well, thank God for that wisdom. It's something that's important, that we've had people like Adam and Matt and Dan with us. They get to see our faith. They get to walk on our journeys. We see them in their youth and enthusiasm, and they give us hope. That seems like a pretty fair exchange to me. If I told you that the education and the care of about 35 seminarians amounts to about 1/3 of the anticipated goal of the Diocesan Appeal, would you be surprised to hear that? Sounds like a lot. Maybe some of you have sons and daughters or grandsons and granddaughters. You've heard what college costs these days. I don't mean to bring palpitations to the heart, but gee, it's a pretty penny these days, isn't it? But it's about building our communities for the future, and that's important. So, thank you for your consideration about the Diocesan Appeal. A bit later this week, you're going to receive something in the mail. The diocese is mailing out to people who've given last year and in the last few years, okay? And they're going to, in the packet, they're going to have information on the appeal. They're going to give you the opportunity to fill something out if you want to make your pledge or your gift by mail. They're going to provide for you information about, say, how to do this online if you prefer. I mean, we are 21st century people, right? All these things going on. They'll have information about things that go on with the appeal. If you're new, like I am, and don't have a current address with them, our parish offices are going to have some blanks so that if you didn't get one, you can. And I'd ask you to give, just some careful thought as family to think about how we reach to all the family members, our extended family, our diocesan family, and how we listen for them, cherish their presence, and try to be attentive in the way we listen and respond to each other out of love, looking to fill all sorts of needs and hungers and desires, the good things that we can do together. So ask you folks, just to prayerfully consider how you and your family might respond to this as we express our love for neighbor in tangible ways that really come straight from the heart, that speak to who we are as God's people, who we are as the sisters and brothers of Jesus. I suppose you could rely on the stories of people who visited other places like Mexico or Albany, or you can rely on your own experiences. But folks, we ask you to think about how you might respond. Thank you for your prayerful consideration, folks, and blessings.